right. That intro, man. First of all, whose idea was it to put me in profile? That was terrible. God. Welcome to Ask the Experts. You're here with the family known as MoneyWatch.com. I'm Jill Schlesinger.
I'm Jack Otter.
And we have a special guest star today, sitting in the hot seat, Lauren Young. Woo! Okay, Lauren says she's a lifelong journalist. Lauren, your first journalism job was?
Elementary school newspaper, middle school newspaper, high school newspaper, college newspaper.
Wow. And which one did you have the best editor?
Oh, well, the irony is I actually worked with Jack's wife in college, so I would say college.
Well, only for purposes of
Well
this
done,
conversation. Very good. Okay, let me give you a little bit more of Lauren's bio besides the fact that she was reporting. What was the mascot of your high school team?
Oh, the Rams.
Besides reporting on great Ram victory. All right. Lauren has spent the last 6 years writing and blogging for Business Week with a focus on personal finance. Do you like to say finance or finance?
I actually say finance more than finance, but I feel like I'm not consistent. I need to be more consistent.
Really? Jack, what do you say?
I've never thought about it. Finance. Finance. I guess I say finance. But I
Okay.
actually like the sound of finance.
Me too.
Finance better.
Finance.
Yeah.
I like finance, but I can't
Got
say
more
it that way.
finesse or
Lauren has spent the last
pizzazz.
6 years writing and blogging for Business Week with a focus on personal finance and issues facing working parents. She's going to start blogging for us soon. She already wrote an article because she and Jack are old friends, so which is good because, Jack, it's nice to know that you exploit your personal relationships
Absolutely.
for Money Watch's gain.
Yeah.
And I think you have to look at Megan for a
Okay.
second. Oh, she wants you to move.
That direction?
All right,
Great.
good.
Okay.
All good. All right. So today, because Lauren is an expert on issues facing working parents, we are here talking about an article she recently wrote for the website and about a recent study that was released by Catalyst. We actually interviewed the Catalyst, the head of Catalyst, which does a lot of research on women and economic issues. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about this article, and Roland, pop the article up for our Money Watch viewers here. It's called "Is the Gender Pay Gap Over?" Lauren, what did you find researching the story?
Well, I have to say it was not necessarily a tough article to write, but as Jack knows, I struggled with it in some ways because I wanted to come at it with a refreshing take. And it's hard because we hear so much about women and workplace and salary discrepancies and all sorts of things. And I was particularly curious at talking to younger women in today's era. And I actually had the opportunity to interview quite a few college-educated young women who are out there in the workforce or about to go out in the workforce to get their impressions about what's their outlook for their working careers. And it was almost like they existed in a bubble that we don't know anything about, because I would say consistently all of these women feel like they are just as valuable to their male counterparts in the workplace, that their earning potential is equivalent. They're realistic about what life holds for them, but all of them were incredibly ambitious.
They have not been crushed by the system yet,
Jill,
is what you're saying.
Why do you have to be so negative?
Well, there are some other things that that have come up. So, okay. In the article, it's pointed out the wage gap doesn't compare, say, lawyers to lawyers and doctors to doctors. It compares all working women with all working men. So until a woman gets, say, Jamie Dimon or Lloyd Blankfein's job, or the best teachers start getting $17 million bonuses, which was low, actually.
Yeah.
I think that Lloyd would like his $60 million back.
He'll get
There's
it.
going to be a gap. But here's the interesting thing. So Catalyst, I just want to tell everyone what Catalyst is all about. It's a nonprofit organization that basically does a lot of research about women's advancement in the workplace. So Catalyst came out with this new survey called The Pipeline for Women is in Peril. And they're saying that women lag men in advancement and compensation. They went out and looked at post-MBA kids, mostly. I'm going to say
Globally.
kids.
They looked at people
Globally.
all around the world, actually, which makes it even more interesting to me.
And so, Lauren, what's the bad news on that front?
Oh, the bad news is that women earn less, and that I think the eye-opening thing in this particular survey was that women actually start their jobs, even if they have very level credentials with their male counterparts. They seem to start at lower positions. So there's a whole thing, salary is one thing, but if you start at a lower position, it's a lot harder to get to the higher position.
Now-
So I thought, and I think a lot of people are responding to that particular finding in this study.
Now, Jack, you've hired people before, right?
Sure.
You think women are just naturally bad advocates for themselves? I mean, is it all just that, you guys are screwing us, if you will? I mean, is that the issue? Or is it that women are not advocating for themselves in a way that men are more naturally inclined to do?
I think it's true that when you are in a situation where you're getting hired and you're negotiating salary, part of it is based on how hard you push, and also part of it is based on where you're coming from, what your salary level is. So I think this finding is particularly disturbing because, as Lauren said, if women are starting out lower, I think at $4,500, $4,600, then that is going to compound over time. Every time they get a new job, even if they negotiate the same percentage increase as their male counterparts, that gap is going to widen and widen.
You know what blew me away about this, Lauren? It actually wasn't also about parenthood, because a lot of friends of mine who've left the workplace go back in after their kids are of a certain age, and they say, hey, you know what? I'll take a lower salary because, I'm coming back in and I'll be a little more flexible on this. But the survey said it's not a matter of parenthood. The findings hold even when considering only men and women who don't have children.
I think that that's really interesting. But at the same time, I think back in my career, I remember once very early in the beginning of my professional journalism career when I actually started getting paid for what I write, that I worked with a guy and he had some family crisis back home in Massachusetts. So he had asked our manager, could he go home because one of his children was sick? And we had all just started a couple weeks prior to that. The hiring manager, the person who had hired this person, didn't realize that he was married with children. He said, had you have told me that, your salary would have been totally different.
Wow.
And it changed right away. I mean, it wasn't like he said, it wasn't set in stone. He said, I'm giving you a raise of blank amount and, go home and take care of your family. And please, in the future, you got to be straight up about these things. He just never had mentioned that he had a family back in Boston.
Wow. Now, here's some other, it's the first year's salary, and you're right, Jack, that definitely compounds. Some other parts of the survey that were just mind-boggling. Regardless of differences in women's and men's starting salary, men still experience higher salary growth post-MBA. In other words, even if we were the rate of growth, even if you start lower, the men are growing by a higher percentage. What's that about? Are we just, maybe that employers are just really horribly sexist? Is that really the conclusion that we're to draw here? What's going on, Lauren? How can we fix it?
Well, there are a couple ways to fix it. And I think some of it's got to be very organic and some of it has got to be very structural. So that's the problem. First of all, companies need to take ownership of this. If it's important to them, because at the end of the day, it's about retention. It's about keeping good people, right? And if you can't keep good people, then you're going to be spending a lot of money, wasting a lot of money. And so a lot of companies are realizing this. Everyone holds up Deloitte and Ernst & Young as being the most revolutionary in these areas because they really have developed incredibly strong women's networks. But the company that I worked for before had a wonderful women's network that really, it wasn't just about, it was not a knitting circle. It was really about professional development. It was about getting women into key roles and focusing on mentoring. All of these things that, they can sound really puffy, but if they're done right, they can make a real impact. So I think that that's one thing. So that's actually pretty structural. But organically, it's also about people really helping each other out. It's about particularly male managers taking an interest in their team and making sure that people are growing rather than being stagnant.
And
I think things can come down from the top, too. If a chief executive officer said, look, we're bringing PricewaterhouseCoopers in here. We're going to audit the company. I'm not going to share it wide because obviously it'll be on the front page of the Journal tomorrow, but I'm going to go to department heads and I'm going to say, here's the problem. You have 1 year. Maybe I'll be generous and give you 2 years to fix it because it's a big structural problem. And if women are still being paid less than men, you're going to lose your job. That would fix the problem in the largest corporation in the country in 2 years.
Wow. And you think that it's so weird. It's sort of, it feels to me now, I'm going to just go out on a limb here because I do this sometimes.
Well, you do.
I do. That this is the one where it's sort of like the silent accepted practice. That's what I find sort of annoying about it. That, that I found as a boss that I would be advocating more for women on my staff, and basically telling the guys, like, shut up, you're not ready to make more money. Like, you have some, like, blown up sense of what you deserve. And I really also think that we need, I kind of nudged people sometimes to say, you deserve more. Come on. This is a teeny tiny company though, So Lauren, how can we help women get the chutzpah to ask a little bit more frequently?
Okay, so bottom line is women don't ask.
Right.
Don't ask for more. We're as I'm being stereotypical, but
Let's do it.
Terrible negotiators. We are. We know that. I mean, study after study shows that. So, unfortunately, it's assertiveness training. Training. It's like really boot camp for being assertive. And the best way to do it, actually, Jill, is just to do it with somebody else. Like, do the mock. It seems so silly, but before you go into the job interview or when it's time to actually figure out the money stuff, to sit down with somebody ahead of time and say, okay, so what's the starting salary? Now, let me tell you, this is where my idea is, and to actually do some fake negotiating. The other thing that's crucial is research. That's the other, women, we just kind of accept things. And again, I'm totally stereotyping.
Okay, we'll take it.
We accept things for face value. And sometimes, oh yeah, that sounds good. That's great. Whereas you really need to be out there doing competitive intelligence. And it's so funny, right? Especially now that I'm not a business week anymore, but to ask people what they earned. I've all of a sudden I have carte blanche to ask everybody, what was your salary? And so I think that, you really need to be upfront with people about how much are other people making around here? What's the going rate? That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. And you really have to be upfront. It's the chutzpah.
And Jack, do you think in a like, obviously we're just coming out of a recession, the job market stinks. Are we asking too much of women who are not naturally inclined to do this? I mean, everyone's just happy to have a job.
No, I think it's the perfect time. I think that because so many people have lost their jobs, there's going to be a reshuffling. The whole creative destruction thing is going to happen. Of course, lots of people are taking a lower salary now just because of the way the economy is shaking out. But so are men. And I think now is the time when finally some hiring starts. That's the perfect time for women to start saying, hey, this is what I'm going to tell two quick stories that I think shed a lot of light on this. The very first raise I ever got, I remember it so clearly because I was a reporter at a small town newspaper, and unbeknownst to me, a female reporter had asked for a raise. This was a stereotypical reporter. I mean, a hard-driving woman, and she told the boss she deserved a raise, and the response was, well, if I give you one, I got to give Jack Otter one too. And I got a raise out of it.
All right. So that woman got you a raise.
But it was a good example of the squeaky wheel gets the money. And in this case, I got the money too. The other one is my wife was negotiating for a new job not long ago. And I was pushing her hard to ask for more than she wanted to ask for. And she said, well, who knows? Maybe the health insurance will be a little better in my old job, so we'll get something that way. I said, no, the health insurance is baked in cement. That's HR does what it does.
Right.
Push for more. So I finally got her to push for this number, and they accepted it without blinking. And she said to me,
I should have asked for more.
Exactly. But it's a great example of, the male influence here pushed it higher. Had I been had I been offered the same job, I would have asked for a higher number just because I'm pushier, and I think I would have gotten it.
Jack, could I ask you to negotiate my next contract for me? All right,
yeah,
Lauren.
because you are a shrinking violet.
I am.
You need my help.
I am. Lauren, what do you want to pop in on that?
Okay, the other thing, and I know the conversation's moving in this direction, but I think also a lot of women, they value things the way they value the whole equation, the health insurance. They value it differently. So flexibility is so crucial to people, and we haven't mentioned that yet.
Right. I agree with that.
But, if you can duck out to go to the dance recital or show up at the class party, it's that peace of mind premium. It's worth something, and there's no economic value that you can give to that. Now, having said that, flexibility is definitely in peril given the fact that staffs are so thin right now and people are really working their tushes off.
That is why we like having bosses in San Francisco.
Woohoo!
By the way, just talking about flexibility for a second. We've got a bunch of questions that we got from our MoneyWatch users. But I have a friend who works for a lunatic. I mean, the guy is literally a crazy-making lunatic. Now, the reason I always say, and she could get another job. Oddly enough, just because of who she is and what she does, she could get another job. But she did say to me, he is such a lunatic. He drives me crazy every day. I like literally have antacid on my desk. However, I get to work 1.5 days from home. I get to come and go as I please. And if the price to pay for that is a little upset stomach sometimes, I'm willing to do it. And I thought that was really a pretty good self-knowledge that, maybe people are willing to do that. And that is okay to take that. But as you say, Lauren, still you've got to ask for more money.
Right. And at the same time, I think flexibility is incredibly crucial to women. And that's also kind of part of the problem, too, is that a lot of those things showing up at the recitals falls on mom's shoulders. And I'm not faulting dads. Just yesterday, a former colleague of mine, a guy, said he had hadn't gone in the office because he had gone to his daughter's holiday party. But, it's so crucial that everybody kind of take part in this conversation. And I think that's one of the things that the work-life experts say is that the other thing that's going to fix this is that it can't be all about mommy. It has to be about dad, too. And companies need to be promoting more. Yeah, we're a great company. Where's the list for working dads?
Yeah, Jack. Oh, sorry.
Well, but I think that's a good question. Fatherhood leaves. Parental leaves for dad is something that some companies kind of offer in name. Yeah, go ahead and try to ask for it and see about that next raise. It's not
Isn't it so
happen.
funny? Because I'm thinking about the company where I used to work, the in-house counsel took the day of his child's birth off and one other day. That's it. And he's like, I can't afford to be out of the office.
When my son was born, I was in the office that afternoon. Now, I still had an easier time than my
your son
wife.
is going to be scarred. He's going to be on a shrink's couch one day and say, I remember now. My father wasn't there for me. All right.
Can I throw in one other factor
Why
that
not?
is going to make this job or this problem so hard to solve?
Yeah.
We did a series on love and money, as you know, for Valentine's Day on MoneyWatch.com. And one bit of information that I think ended up on the cutting room floor because it wasn't relevant to that story was that when polled about the virtues that they want in a potential spouse, women put earning power very, very high on their priority list.
Oh, there we
Men
go.
put it very low.
Lauren, this is what my mother would put in the category of it's just as easy to marry a rich one as a poor one. Is that true? Do we put that too high on our list? What do you think?
I think probably some people put it high on the list. I mean, there is that traditional, MRS major in college, to get married. But I think that, just the whole mommy factor in general, it's not that fun to be a stay-at-home mom, I have to say, in the scheme of things for me. And maybe some people really enjoy it, but I was itching to get back to work. I think working makes me really sane and much nicer. So I think your wife actually says that too, Jack. But it's such a big topic that I'm sighing, and that's probably not really fair. But I think that, you know what? We come in different flavors and different shapes and different sizes. I'm sure women out there who don't really enjoy working because they haven't found a career they really like. Ditto for guys. I mean, and guys have found a career that they don't really like, but it pays really well. I mean, many different stripes. But the bottom line is that if we want to reproduce and have families, life gets complicated.
Oh, boy.
That's what it comes down to.
So here's some questions. Here's Peggy. I feel that professional and financial progress is made by strategically picking different companies and not staying too long anywhere, not until you find the right fit, of course, or crave a bit more stability. It seems a fair number of men I've gone to school with or worked with have no problems going where the opportunities are, but women seem to be more hestant to jump ship. Why?
Because we build that camaraderie of the people around us. We rely on, the nest and who's stocking it, who's there. And it's very, very hard to break out of that comfort zone. Women suck at breaking out of that comfort zone. I'm sorry.
Love it. You're coming back. Interestingly enough, I have a friend who works at a very large investment firm, and we were laughing about somebody who we knew who left the firm to go take another job, like at a hedge fund. And she said to me, he doesn't know anything about that. He doesn't know. He's not a 40-act lawyer. He's a litigator. He never did that. And I find sometimes also men are willing to just sort of say, like, well, I could do that. Fine, I'll do it. No problem. Whereas a lot of my friends who are women are like, well, if I don't exactly know how to do the job I'm applying for, well, then I better take myself out of it because I have to be perfect at that job before I even apply for it. Guys seem like very much more willing to not only jump ship, but go into places where they don't know anything about it. Look at Jack.
I've never done this stuff
I've
before.
never done
Yeah.
this.
I was
No,
a
but
ship's captain.
I mean, but what do you think about that? Do you think that men are a little bit more bolder in going outside their comfort zone?
Absolutely, and to that kind of, if you flip it, it's that women like to build something, and they have that camaraderie, they have the family, and then you feel like you're leaving the family or you're violating. There's all these other emotional things involved with getting another job because you're all of a sudden you're almost cheating on your friends or your colleagues. So I think men are from
Friend from Mars.
right, women are from Venus.
Okay, good.
I'm optimistic, and I think women should actually use this quality to their advantage in negotiation. I mean, here I'm going to say something that were I to reverse the gender roles, I would get fired and pilloried.
Oh, good.
But the most reliable employees I have ever had are definitely women.
Hold on a second. Yay,
Okay, I worked for Jack.
The
There
most
you go.
fastidious reporters.
Oh, really?
And, who triple fact check and all that. Absolutely. And I think it comes with, it's sort of the other side of that coin of that confidence. Like, yeah, I can do it. Sure. Men might take that attitude where women triple check before they will jump in. And say for a writer, certainly, that's very important. I would have to think as a lawyer and accountant, pretty good thing too. Maybe a stockbroker. So women should recognize that this is a selling point and use it to their advantage.
I worked in a department that was all women, and the person who ran the department was a man, and he loved it. He said that it was by far the most, and we were all working moms too, the most efficient group of people because we got the job done. We met deadlines. We knew how to do it. We knew how to juggle. And he thinks people who know how to juggle tend to be better employees. And for him, we were like the dream team because we made his life so easy.
Now, we have another MoneyWatch user, Katie, who actually asked originally about, I think we've already addressed it, about salary gaps. But she did ask something that's interesting, is that let's say that you're in the company, right? And you've come in at a lower level, you've worked your way up. What do you do to try to close the gap once you're there? I mean, you're in a place 6, 7, 8 years. You've come in, let's just think, we'll use CBS for an example. You come in and you are an associate producer and you work on one of the shows and you work your way up and you sort of maybe at the back of your head get the sense that other people are making more than you who are of your level. But how can you right the ship? How can you close the gap? Or do you just have to leave? What do you think, Lauren?
I actually am the latter.
Yeah.
I think at least getting an offer from somewhere else, getting out there and knowing what your worth is and finding out what the competitive landscape is, we become really complacent in what's around us in our little bubble, and sometimes we're not good at expanding our horizons. But I have to say, because I am the backhanded negotiator for everyone. Everyone comes to me with their negotiating, questions, and I'm such a good coach, and I have to say I'm not so great for myself. But the people who have excelled the most in this particular area of getting more at their current jobs have done it because they had an offer from somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's generally true. I think it's hard.
It's so slippery though. I don't like it at all. And
I know, but you know what? It's sort of also the reality of the world. I think that if you feel a little stuck, I know that the boss would. Someone came to me once and said, "I got an offer, and if you don't match it, I'll leave." And I remember in my gut, the first thing I thought was, "Oh, I hate feeling held hostage." But then I thought, shame on me as the owner, because I should be keeping you loving your place and feeling well compensated. And you know what? He was right. He should have gone out and looked because we weren't paying him enough, and we did match it. In fact, gave him more because I felt like, you know what? We owed him that. But I did at the end of the day, look in the mirror and say, we had responsibility for that. I know that my first reaction was I don't want to be held hostage. So I think it works. And I do think if people want you, they keep you. By the way, someone once did that to me, and I said, I wish you the very best of luck.
Wow. Just to throw in a little quick story, when we worked together, Jack, at Smart Money, that happened to me. I was recruited by an investment bank, and I ended up, it just wasn't going to be the right opportunity for me. And I really kept it on the down low, but I did confide in a couple of our colleagues. One went to the editor-in-chief and told him. And even after I had, turned down the job, I got a $10,000 raise for staying. It was back in the day. Things were different, but it was, that it really showed the value of that I was valued as an employee.
Yeah, absolutely.
This issue, it also points out the complete absurdity of the Lilly Ledbetter decision at the Supreme Court level, because as your example pointed out, Jill, nobody knows what their colleagues are making, especially in the early part of their career.
Yeah.
Later on, eventually you might find out something, but by then the Supreme Court ruled it's too late.
Yeah. It's very frustrating, actually, because
That's why I actually think it's really important to ask people. People are so uncomfortable when you ask them.
Of course, yeah.
But I put people on the spot all the time. How much do you make, Jay?
And it helped me with my last job before this one. I spoke to the guy who had left that position,
Oh.
and that changed what I asked for more once I
Good.
found out what he was making. Yeah.
I had a very funny experience with that because I never was in broadcasting. So when I first got involved with CBS and they started talking to me about money, I kind of knew generally what people make. But I think that in a funny way, because I had a whole other career in managing money, the boss basically said, "Don't you have an agent?" I said, "No, I don't have an agent. I'm my agent." And he said, "Well, I don't like necessarily negotiating with like talent." I'm like, "Well, I'm not really that talented in broadcasting. I'm talented about money." But the interesting part of it was that I felt like he got a little freaked out about having to negotiate directly with me. And it was a little contentious at times. But in the end, I actually think it was really good for our relationship because we both kind of stuck to what we thought were our core points. We both gave a little bit. Maybe people in Congress could learn something from this. Okay, here's the next question. I'm a manager with 2 people on my team with the same job title. The male is paid more than the female, but not by a large amount. Are there times when a salary differential is reasonable? I would say it's reasonable if the guy's better than the girl, but it's not clear. Let's assume that they're of equal, they're at parity. What percentage is an unreasonable salary differential of people with the same title?
It's amazing the range that can be in the same title. I bet, you go into any organization and people who have similar titles, the disparity is probably enormous. That just, it's an accepted practice. I actually think it's not that cool. I think that it would be a lot better because then you would have very clear definitions of what
Right.
you're aspiring for. And there wouldn't be, competition is healthy. We know that among colleagues. But I think that there shouldn't be such a big differential.
That it would almost be like a lockstep kind of thing. There's a major law firm in New York, a major white shoe law firm. This is kind of interesting, where partners are paid, it's what's called lockstep, which means if you're a first-year partner, all the first-year partners,
Right.
regardless of how much they bring in, make the same amount of money. So if you're a big, huge rainmaker at this particular firm, which I will reveal later off camera, you kind of would get paid more money if you were at a different firm. But at this firm, what they're basically saying is everyone brings something to the table. Just because you're a big deal maker doesn't mean you're not going to need the bankruptcy guy to come help you out some point. And it's very clear. And by the way, what do they do to kind of incent people? Because everyone knows everyone else's salaries. They send around billable hours of all the partners, and it's distributed for every single partner. So there's like a huge shame factor that goes on. And I don't think that's a sort of a very specific takeaway, but I think that there are times where we have to demystify this thing called salary and wage and not get so nutty about it. And it's like it's a number. Like either we're going to stick to a certain level, and this is what junior editors are going to be paid, and this is what this person's going to be paid. And I think that it might actually be easier to manage the process that way. It just might be. All right, Lauren, you ready for this?
Yes, Jill.
Here come.
Fire it.
Here we go. These are the working mother questions, and I'm not a working mother, so I can't answer any of them. Evidently, the working mother will always be at a disadvantage, having to take maternity leave to look after her newborn. But is it really a disadvantage? Can we put a monetary value on what the baby would lose if the mother cannot or is not willing to look after him, her?
Yes, because it filters up through society and through the economy to have a stable home for a child that is a good foundation for them to be a productive member of society. So there is an economic value and some, freakonomics number out there, I'm sure.
Right.
But I think that I don't think a working mother will always be a disadvantage to take maternity leave. I think that that's kind of changing too. Because I think just in the same way, Jack, that if more dads are taking paternity leave, share the burden. And there's this whole movement called equally shared parenting, where these people have drawn very clear guidelines as to how you share parenting so that it's not all on the onus of a mom. And Jill, you may not have children biologically, but I bet you have a million people that look up to you. So you can be part of the conversation. Don't.
What? I have nieces and nephews. It's true. All right, so I'm going to do the politically incorrect thing, and I'm going to talk to you about being the boss, an owner of a company, and how a small company can completely get flummoxed by the parenthood thing. Okay.
Yeah,
so
they all
so
get pregnant at the same time.
everyone gets. I mean, my entire office seemed to be pregnant. There was only 25 people in the whole office. It was like 6 people out on maternity leave. It was a huge and significant cost to the firm because we really did want these people to come back. And a few people kind of screwed us. They said, oh, of course I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'm coming back. They didn't come back. There were some things that happened. And so tips can you give for a small business owner who's watching this? And, what could we do better? And how can we have a little more flexibility in it? I mean, it's really hard. It's really, really, I tell you the thing that the burden gets shifted to people who don't have children.
I'm curious, what if you had to go back and do it all differently? Is there something you would have done
I
differently?
would never hire a woman again. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke. I think that if I were to go back, I think that I would want to really make sure that when we talk about goals and objectives, especially for when people come back, that we're realistic. I think that we weren't realistic and they weren't realistic. We were young, we were all, my business partner and I, we were in our, we were like 30 and 32 when this was all happening. We were a young firm. And so we didn't know, and we didn't have kids at the time. And then he started having kids, and he sort of got the clue there. And I had a huge blowout fight with him about health insurance. We used to pay 90% of everyone's health insurance, regardless of the type of plan you had. And I said, well, that's great if you have a family, but you're basically paying someone who has a family more than someone who doesn't have a family. So I really think that it just takes a lot more conscious planning about it. And it also means saying to the people who are picking up the load after, we're going to reward you for this. We've got to, it's going to stink for the next 4 months while Jane is out on leave, but you will be rewarded. We're going to reward you because I think we did not budget for that. And so we really couldn't reward them in the way that they should have been. And that's what stunk. So there it is. There's my last thing. Okay, here's your last. Yes, parenthood is a daunting task. It seems that way, I must say. It just seems very hard. It's also immensely rewarding. It doesn't seem that rewarding when my sister's kids are shrieking in the background. But for the mother, in terms of precious moments and milestones, father misses out on them. It's a two-way trade-off. I have long grown tired of this overemphasis on girl power. Where are the howls of concern that men have been so underrepresented in colleges for years now? Amen for efforts against breast cancer, but where are the marathons for research against prostate cancer so prevalent in men? I think that there's a lot of money that goes to prostate cancer research, actually. I can't imagine the amount of money that's gone to erectile dysfunction relative to breast cancer, but that's just me. So this guy sounds kind of mad. I'm saying it's a guy. It may not be. What do you think, Lauren?
I think the point is valid in some ways. In some,
No,
I understand where he's coming from. I just think, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be. It really is terrible that it's a male versus female conversation. It just should be an us conversation. Oh. And I know it's peace and love, and I'll give you guys all kisses and peace signs when we leave. But I think that's where the conversation has to change. It has to be like, how can we make the world a better place and not be so focused on what it's for me, and him, or her.
You know what, Jack? Can't we all just get along?
I think there's a song about that.
Yeah. Well, it's not this song, but I want to thank Lauren. You have been so awesome, and you've got to come back. And now that you're going to be a MoneyWatch blogger, there's really no telling what we could do. We're going to bring you in here constantly. So, Lauren Young, thank you so much for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
And Jack Otter, thank you for being bold enough to come in here with a pink tie.
You betcha.
And
Who said that?
You did.
Oh, okay.
Sarah. And so I think this has been great. I think we're going to get lots of comments about it. Keep sending us your questions, which is Ask the Experts. I was about to give my old company's website address in that moment.
Does it still exist?
To God. Yes, it does.
Okay.
But I'm not plugging them. So the email address for your questions or comments or things you want Lauren to come back on the show and talk about, because she's super duper expert, right?
Yeah.
So you go to asktheexperts@moneywatch.com. Ask the Experts, no spaces, at moneywatch.com. Or send your comments to Jack Otter directly.
Sure.
All right. thank you so much for watching. I think that this is probably a very apt outro. By the way, my handle when my grandfather had a CB radio was Wonder Woman.
Wow.
So this means a lot to me. Thanks, Megan. Lauren, thank you so much. Lauren's got her shields up. Jack is ready to just hijack our transparent plane of Wonder Woman. Thank you so much, Jack. You've been awesome today. Appreciate it. I'm Jill Schlesinger, and thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.